Can we rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance together? Thank you, Jamie. Will you call the roll?
Councilman Jeff Capel,
Here.
Councilwoman Jill Cole.
Here.
Sorry. Councilman Lee Zerwanka,
Here.
Councilman Brian Gath,
Here.
Vice Mayor Pramod Javeri,
Here.
Councilwoman Katie Schneider,
Here.
Mayor Mark Cirkin.
Here.
7 present.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to accept tonight's agenda?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have a public hearing tonight to consider approval of a zoning text amendment and zoning map amendment. Jamie, will you please read 2023-02 and 03 by title only?
2023-02, approving a zoning text amendment to add animal boarding facilities and kennels as a permitted use in the Summit Park District. And ordinance number 2023-03, approving a zoning map amendment to rezone approximately 9.07 acres of 5 commercial properties to Blue Ash North District. And this is the first reading for each of these.
Thank you. David, you want to do a little intro?
Yeah, just restate it. I know it was in the memo, but just restate. So you may recall several months ago, Red Dog had applied for a PUD. The PUD was not recommended for approval by the Planning Commission. It came to council. Council actually voted favorably for the project, but not enough votes to overcome the Planning Commission non-recommendation. So buoyed by presumably the favorable vote by council, the owners of Red Dog decided to propose a text amendment in which would allow this use in the zoning district. Unfortunately, Planning Commission altered that, and it's something we'll try to discourage in the future because we don't want to have so many variables here. And I'd like to think maybe if I was at the meeting, I would have helped steer that away from kind of ad hocing, either yes or no on the decision. But in any event, the confusion for you now is you have an application in which they've asked you to vote on a text amendment. In order to vote on that text amendment that would permit this as a conditional use, you will require a supermajority. Planning Commission made a favorable recommendation to rezone the property instead of a text amendment that only requires a minor approval of it. So a simple majority. So you have that complication. Nonetheless, the applicant here presumably to talk about the merits of the project, and he probably doesn't care how you vote for it as long as you vote for it.
Do we need to decide tonight if we want to go forward with deciding on a map amendment versus a text amendment?
No, I think you can make that decision on the second reading.
Greg? Come on up.
Good evening, Greg Lund with Red Dog. Nice to see you all again. I'm going to walk through a quick presentation here. I think David stole a little bit of my thunder just with regard to the kind of outline of where we are, but I'll go through it briefly. So just from an overview and kind of an update perspective, of course, here to talk about the property at 10635 Techwood Circle. It's the existing Applebee's. The developer has purchased the property, so it's already owned. David did walk through sort of the sequence of how we've gotten to this point. But I'll just go through it briefly. In February, we were here in front of you all looking for approval on a PUD. Of course, as David mentioned, that was voted fairly favorably with a 4-3 vote, but we didn't, of course, have the supermajority that we needed to get full approval. So we did work a bit with the city administration to talk about other options because we felt like, just generally speaking, there was a fairly positive response to the project. It was just a question as to how do we kind of get it done. We did arrive to the conclusion that potentially a text amendment would make sense, and we brought that back in front of planning. And all along, on sort of a parallel track, we've also been listening to and working through the design and feedback on the design side too. So we kind of ran that on a parallel track. And when we came back in front of planning about a month ago, we did talk about some of those design modifications as well, which I thought, while we had your attention in here, we would also bring those up just to get everybody fully up to speed on at least the current design of the project. As it's not completely applicable to the zone change, but at least we'll give you a sense as to how we're thinking about the development. So, at this point in time, as David said, we have two options in front of council. We, do not have a strong preference one way or the other, and clearly would, support either direction. There are 5 parcels that would be affected by the zone change as sort of proposed by Planning Commission. 2 of those parcels are actually owned by the developer or developer affiliate. We also are affiliate. We actually own the gatherings as well. And so, of course, we're supportive. So, I want to go quickly through the modifications to the design, because we did hear a lot of feedback, both from planning, from council, from the city architect. And so major sort of design modifications that we've made around the rear of the building facing Reed Hartman, with some comments around, hey, this really should look a little bit more like maybe a front facing facade. We weren't able to really orient the building so that would happen, but I think we did some, really unique things to make it look as such. We did mix the materials to provide a more just, kind of prominent aesthetic on that elevation. We did move away largely from the vinyl perimeter fence and really replaced it with a lot more, piers and masonry structures. Anywhere where we kind of needed some airflow, which is of course a function of making sure that, you handle the oxygen and the airflow for the animals. We did that with some, really unique kind of stainless steel screening. And then the landscaping was really stepped up to accentuate, mostly the kind of masonry walls. And so from a design perspective, the front looks largely the same, but the rear looks very different. As you can tell, what we did is we sort of created a front facing facade. And so we pulled out really that sort of middle elevation and made it look like as if it were the front of a building. And so you can kind of see it has a very sort of prominent aesthetic. It's got the signage, although there wouldn't be any access there. If you were driving by, you could certainly get a feel for it in that way. So really not to take too much time, and we've gone through a lot of the rationale for the zone change and how we think it could be, really meaningful in that trade area in particular. There's a fair amount of vacancy. And I think largely the properties there have suffered from really not having enough traffic. Of course, a pet resort is a destination-based location, and I think it'll drive traffic through that general trade area. And we did look at a lot of different opportunities if this were not the use that, because of course it is already owned. So just general planning, what else could be done with the property, and just sort of given the current state of, the office market as well as kind of the retail restaurant market. We do believe that we've sort of found, at least one of the highest and best uses. So really just here to ask for your support and kind of rezoning this property. Again, not a strong preference for us by way of either a zoning map amendment or a text amendment. But if it were a zone map amendment, it would affect these 5 properties, and of which we own 2 of them. That's really all I have.
Okay, since this is a public hearing on this subject only, if anybody in the public would like to come up, make a comment or ask a question of the developer on just this Red Dog, you're welcome to come up right now. Seeing nobody, we'll move on and close the public part of the public hearing. And then any questions or comments from city council? We typically don't deliberate on the first reading, but Yep.
My only question was if we did a zoning map change, what's the process do we need to have all the property owners agree to it or? Okay.
Very similar to Jill's question, have any of the other 3 property owners objected up to this point?
I mean, one of them is already an animal care facility. One of them's a daycare facility, so I can see people dropping off their kid and their pet. And then the other 2 are owned by the developer. So your Living Up Unifund is the only one that isn't really kind of fit into this zoning already.
I have a question. Can you go into the first frame where you're showing the front and the back? So the top one, can you make it bigger?
Mm,
The fence,
I
it's
try-
going to be, the fence is going to be the wall?
yes, it's,
Okay.
either one of the renderings. I could probably zoom in, but, oops.
Are the windows you see in it the metal mesh you're talking about?
Yes, yep.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Perfect. So yeah, these are like a metal mesh, kind of perforated metal. So it allows for, of course, airflow, breaks up the wall and gives it some fenestration. But of course has a nice aesthetic. And then this is the perimeter wall running back the other side.
Okay, thank you.
Not for the developer, and this is probably something that we can figure out between now and the next time. I tried to determine the differences between what was allowed in Blue Ash North and what was allowed in Summit Park District, other than pet care facilities, and I wasn't real successful in understanding that, and that's my own zoning is complex. When I either off the top of your head, what the major
You're
differences
asking if we
between-
were to rezone this to Blue Ash North, what additional things would be permitted or what differences? Is that what you're asking?
Basically, yes.
I would say fundamentally, probably the biggest substantive one outside of this would be, some more light manufacturing uses are permitted in the Blue Ash North. So, Kelly, can you think of any other substantive one? That's the one I'm thinking that's most substantive.
Thank you.
Yeah, but I would say substantively, there's a little more light manufacturing permitted in Blue Ash North than in the Summit Park District. Not to be confused with big, heavy manufacturing or anything like that, though.
Right here. Okay, any other questions? Well, then I'm going to go ahead and close the public meeting and we'll move on to approving the minutes of the regular meeting, March 23rd, 2023.
I'll make a motion to approve as
Second.
presented.
All in
And
favor?
I just wanted to
Sorry.
ask for one small amendment. If we go towards the bottom of page 9. And then just go to the paragraph that starts by saying Councilman Capel. There were, back during that debate, what I did is I was comparing what the legislation would allow for Kroger versus what Speedway would still be allowed to do. But there was no reference in the minutes to my Speedway point, which was quite important to the point I was making. Though if you go a paragraph below that, it has two council members referencing the Speedway point that I was making. So it would be an awkward read if a resident was reading the minutes as it's written without an amendment. So I just wanted to make a 6-word amendment at the end of the first sentence of the paragraph. If we can just add the words would still only be allowed for. So then the sentence would end, as it is written states that Kroger will be able to place 7 pumps at their location. I'm sorry, let's make that an 8-word, while Speedway would still only be allowed 4. So then I'm going to move for the 8-word amendment to add at that end of the sentence, while Speedway would still only be allowed 4.
Second?
And
All in favor?
yeah, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's all I had. Otherwise, I'm fine with the minutes.
Okay, does that count as approving the amended minutes? We're good? Thank you, we're good.
That's the amendment that we approved.
I think
Now
we
we need
approved
to
my
approve the
amendment.
minutes.
So we do need
The
to,
answer, yes.
we do. I thought you said yes, we're good. Okay. So
Understood the question.
do I have a motion to approve the amended
I'll make
minutes?
a
Already
motion
sitting,
to approve the amended minutes.
You already have it.
too many people
Second.
speaking.
All in favor?
Aye.
I think we're good. I think we're on the same page. All right, do we have any communications to council?
We have a liquor license request. It's due to a change of address for 3 Gingers LLC. They're doing business as Garnish Catering. The police department has reviewed this and has no issue with it.
What's the new address?
The new address is 4171 Hunt Road. They were on Kenwood.
Two doors down from me.
They'll be your new neighbors, yeah.
Yeah, new neighbors. Used to be the Asian restaurant. Okay, the mayor's report for March of 2023 will be entered into the public record. Do I have a motion to accept the financial report of March of 2023?
We want to check for outside agencies. I think we might have skipped that.
Did I? I'm sorry.
I
Do
didn't
you have
catch
any
it.
reports from outside agency?
Not that I know of, just wanted to make sure nobody
Okay.
was here.
Thank you, thank you. All right, so I have a motion to accept the financial report from March of 2023.
Second,
Favor?
Aye.
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 We're going to move to hearings from citizens, and before we start real quickly, just want to make a quick statement. A landslide occurred just west of the Fox Run Apartments on Hunt Road that jeopardized the integrity and safety of the roadway. As soon as a qualified contractor was available, the work authorized by the Blue Ash Administration and City Council to stabilize Hunt Road began. Unfortunately, road construction projects often involve temporary inconveniences. At the request of the city of Reading, the Waxwing Gate was temporarily opened. Unfortunately, this caused many motorists to use Waxwing Drive as an unofficial detour. The official detour is Cross County Highway. All safety services still have immediate access through the gate for emergencies. Waxwing is not designed to be a busy detour route. The ultimate decision to reclose the gate was based on the consideration of numerous variables, but primarily based on the road not being suitable as a detour. We are doing whatever we can to get Hunt Road opened as soon as possible. Now, with that, hearings for citizens. If you wish to speak, please approach the microphone and state your name and address. If you have any materials to pass out, please give them directly to Jamie, the clerk of council. Please keep your comments as brief as possible to allow your neighbors a chance to be heard. And if your comments are similar to a previous speaker, it's much more effective to simply verbalize that you agree without repetition. Hearings from citizens is for us to listen to you and your neighbors. It is very unlikely that we will make any remarks immediately after you speak. We need to have a chance to reflect on your comments. Sometimes, and during miscellaneous business later in the meeting, we do revisit an issue brought forward. The clerk of council will notify you when your turn of 3 minutes is over. Most importantly, let's all treat each other with calmness, kindness, and respect.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up. My name is Scott Garten, so I live at 9403 Waxwing Drive.
Can you speak right into the
Yeah,
microphone?
closer. So I live right there on the edge of Blue Ash and Reading. So I really want to come here and just I've shared my concerns with the Blue Ash officials, and would want to thank you for the response and closing the gate. I put together some thoughts. I wanted to read through those, some of the things that we experienced and felt with the gate being open. So I want to share that. And I think a number of the neighbors from the street are here as well with similar thoughts. So I have 4 young children, and they are used to playing in the dead end cul-de-sac that is Waxwing Drive. When the gate was opened, it was turned into really a pretty high traffic road. There were about different times we counted traffic. It was about 127 cars an hour, so more than one every 30 seconds was passing through in the afternoon. And this is a key time too, because that's when the high school, the middle school, and the elementary school kids would be getting off the bus at the top of the hill and would be walking down the street. And if you've been to Waxwing and see that it's a very steep street, it's pretty hard to even ride a bicycle down that without breaking the speed limit and going fast. And it's also a street that does not have any sidewalks. So the kids that get off the bus have to walk down on the street. So we're definitely concerned about that situation with all the traffic coming down. And our small street, we have about 10 houses on that little stretch of street. And in that 10 houses, we have 17 children, 9 dogs. And even the elementary school bus stop has 8 little children that stand at the top of the bus. That corner, they're waiting to get on the bus. So definitely a lot of traffic going through when the kids are standing there. And then some other background, we've kind of looked into this going through here, but neighbors tell me and understand that the gate was opened for about 3 days in the 1990s timeframe. And in that time, they said a young girl was hurt by a car at that point, and it was closed shortly after that opening. And today we were concerned in the week that it was open. We saw a lot of cars that were going very fast down the hill Stop signs were set up to try to slow traffic down, but they weren't being followed for the most part. And some people would stop, but many were blowing right through those stop signs. And the other thing that was of concern is, I think it was day 2 of the gate being open. Our neighbor's mailbox was taken out by a car. So a car had run over the mailbox. And the concern was if that would have happened with the mailbox, that could have been a kid as well. So, I mean, the whole street was very concerned. Just even the background when purchasing the house, I mean, choosing this house for my family to live in, it was a key consideration and factor that this was a dead end closed road and only emergency personnel could go through it. And that was the understanding and what we were told when purchasing the house. Before this temporary gate that could be opened, it did have a permanent gate. So if you see older pictures, there was a steel barricade that went across the road that could not be opened at all. And the good thing is with the temporary gate we have, it can be open. The emergency personnel now, I understand, like you said, have the keys to it. They can open it and understand that it could take a few extra seconds to open that gate, but feel like that's a safe trade for the children's safety.
That's 3 minutes.
All right.
Try to finish up as quick as you can.
Yeah, so I think that was really the heart of it. Just wanted to say, thank you. Thank you for closing it. And we'd like to keep it closed. I think the other piece, just interested in when this happened, there wasn't much of warning that we heard. I think we found out from a letter about a week or so before that it was opened, and would appreciate a chance to kind of share our concerns before it would open next time.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
My name is Paul Kennedy. I live at 9446 Waxwing Drive on the Blue Ash side. I may be a little herky-jerky because I don't want to repeat what Scott just said in some of these instances. My wife Pam and I have lived at our house since August of 1991. We selected this house because it's in Blue Ash and it's on a dead-end street. We've paid our property taxes for 31 and a half years under the assumption that this will remain a dead-end street. Props to Vice Mayor PJ for coming out yesterday and interviewing individual residents of my little section of the dead-end street and for getting our opinions there. And also very much thanks to whoever decided to close the gate. In 1994, that was the first time that I witnessed a gate being opened, and cars were whizzing down Waxwing Drive. We had no premonition. There was no warning. I called at that point in time, Mayor Walt Ruger for an explanation, and he researched and found out, again, it was construction on Hunt Road and that stop signs would be placed. And he also made sure that the Blue Ash Police had a very vivid presence for the 3 days the gate was open. So they were constantly patrolling and just parking there, and that really slowed traffic down. It is our understanding that that gate would only be open for emergency vehicles. This implies no convenience or casual traffic. It only took a couple of days before there was property damage this time around, and the guys of mailboxes getting knocked over. Thank goodness there wasn't a kid hurt this time. Big difference between 1994 and 2023 barrier opening. As Scott mentioned, there's now 17 kids versus 7 kids in 1994. There's much more foot and bicycle traffic on this street in 2023. And at other times, I'm not going to repeat that. This is a very dangerous amount with no sidewalks. The thing that concerned me and my neighbors was the construction estimate of 2 months to completion for the Hunt Road was so much longer than the 3 days it was open previously that we thought that really, really increases the probability of something nasty happening, either more severe property damage or, heaven forbid, somebody really getting hit by a car. In 1994, the traffic was mainly cars for the 3 days it went through. This year, there was a significant amount of larger, heavier vehicles, such as pickup trucks, big SUVs, Sycamore school buses, and delivery trucks going up and down the street. The wear and tear on the street, just for the, about 12 days that the gate was open, is noticeable. You can go down and just see that, small potholes became larger potholes. My wife Pam could not be here tonight. But going forward, Pam and I feel this waxwing barrier should not be open for anything other than emergency vehicles. If it is under consideration to be opened again, I feel, and so does Pam, that residents should be contacted ahead of time, and then in a forum such as this, a council meeting, have public comments before any decision is being made. I have a few questions that, you're never supposed to.
It's 3 minutes.
Oh, okay. Can I ask two questions? I don't know the answer to these, which is the cardinal sin, never ask a question you don't know the answer to. And was Blue Ash Council involved in any of the opening of the barrier discussions? Because you are my representatives. That's my voice into decisions that are made in my city and especially on my street. And that didn't happen. And what was the number that was deemed too many vehicles, thus prompting the closing of the barrier? I don't know how much traffic is too much traffic. I'm not a traffic engineer.
Thank you.
Thank you very
We may
much.
get to some of that miscellaneous business. Okay.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Bill Tucker. I live at 9460 Waxman Drive. And fortunately for you guys, they covered most of what I wanted to say, so I'll skip most of it. But I do want to thank you again for closing the gate. I'm Mayor Serkin. Thank you for your communications. Oh boy, where to start? So the notice a few days ahead of time was helpful. So at least we had a heads up. Versus nothing. I'm all in favor of emergency responders having access to both neighborhoods to keep it safe. My neighbor Scott had a camera aimed at the street and he counted thousands of cars and 0 EMS vehicles, which is good because I don't want there to be an emergency. But so the opening was not being used in that for that purpose. It's been confirmed by multiple people that emergency vehicles still have access through that, which is fantastic. I'm glad they have it. That's great. Last Tuesday afternoon, there was 105 cars that passed through the barricade between 4:30 and 5:30, and the day before that, there was 127 cars in that same hour. That is the time frame that the families are getting home and the elementary school kids' buses dropped off, and those kids are walking down the street. On the street because there are no sidewalks. Excuse me. I would like to thank the Reading Police Chief Brian Edens for sending me a copy of the data from the speed trailer. There were multiple instances of vehicles traveling well over 40 miles an hour, and the highest was 52 miles an hour. Now this is on the flat spot in Reading after 2 stop signs. So if people are going 52 miles an hour on a flat piece of road, that they're going faster down the hill after already having a 35-mile-an-hour head start at the top at Lobelia. So that was kind of scary. This recording was taken at 3:30 p.m., which is when the middle school bus is dropping off, which is what my kids are on. As Scott said, the stop sign of the barricade was being ignored. I was actually standing in his driveway talking with him one afternoon when there was 2 drivers got into a honking competition at the corner of Petworth Court, which is just south of the barrier. The driver heading north was obviously irate, and he blew through the stop sign and basically floated up the hill while we were standing there. I'm pretty sure that he didn't see us because he was angry. I get it, but and I understand that people are they're always in a hurry, and detours are an inconvenience. And I don't believe that anyone's intention was to trade the safety of our children for convenience, but this is what we are talking about. We have newspaper articles dating back to August 10th, 1962, before Tangle Ridge was constructed. And the developer was trying to link the Blue Ash and Reading via Waxwing because there was no street there. The Reading City Council barricaded the north end of Waxwing to prevent a possible dangerous condition from developing if said street is constructed northward. So this was back in 1962 that this section of street was actually vacated from the street, no longer becoming
3
a
minutes.
public road. Thank you. Can I say one more?
Finish up.
So my bottom line with that point is just that this isn't a road anymore. So I understand it could be used for emergency vehicles, but it's technically private property. It's not a road and it shouldn't be used as one. And I'll let my
Thank you,
neighbors
Bill.
speak for themselves. Thank you very much.
Hello, Mike Frazee, 5325 Cooper Road. I wanted to make some comments on Summit Park. Very nice park, very popular, but I think there are some room for improvements. First of all, there's no picnic area or picnic shelter where you can have a grill out or or a picnic. There are some benches and tables to the right of the dog park, but most parks have some type of grills where you can have a picnic. Second of all, the parking lot at the far west end of it doesn't seem to be serving any purpose. It's not providing any benefit to nature and it's not providing any recreational benefit. I would say if you're not using it, dig it up and return it to nature or consider another park feature. And an idea could be one of these, like at Washington Park, the interactive fountains. Their kids could cool off or the water shoots up and the laser lights and all that, something kind of a cool off zone. But under no circumstances should any parcels in the park be sold to developers. We see them all developing all around it. There are some areas not being used, but that should not be allowed because that's our park. And finally, the tower, I'm kind of against then closing it in. I know you're trying to make it safer, but I'm afraid it's going to hurt the visual appeal. You're not going to be able to take pictures or see us clearly. If you could simultaneously enhance it, an idea, I don't know if most people could stomach this, but maybe put in a glass floor or something to kind of give it its edge back as you're making it safer. Just an idea I had. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Richard West. I don't live on Waxwing. I live on Lobelia, right adjacent to it. And I gave you this handout here for information. I don't know if you're aware of it, but in the center of Waxwing Road at the barricade, there are two private plots of land right in the middle of that road. Was anybody aware of that or not?
I've heard so many different stories about the land.
I
I think
brought-
Reading ran into an endpoint when they tried to research the
Yeah,
history.
I sent her, I gave her a printout from the Hamilton County Auditor's site that there is a slot 186 and 187 that's about 16 inches wide and the width of the road that are privately owned. I was told that they're owned by Cherrywood
The
organization.
name of the subdivision in Reading.
I don't know. Yeah, okay. But they're the same company that owns those little strips of land right across the middle of Waxwing Road. So technically, and it also appears that neither city claims that spot. Because if you look at that area, it's paved up to both sides of that little strip that I'm telling you about. And at the middle section is crumbled concrete and gravel. So evidently, even the municipalities don't recognize that either. So that may be a problem with possibility of leaving that open. I'm against leaving it open. I walk my dog up and down that street all the time and it's brought up by many others. There's no sidewalks there. And it just, most of the people there have purchased this property with the intent that this is a dead end street. So, most people want to keep it that way just for their property values, if nothing else. So, but I wanted to make you aware of that if you didn't have any knowledge of that. So that's all I got.
Thank you.
Thanks.
My name is Lisa Durbin. I'm actually one of your neighbors from the Reading side. I am the house that sits right next to the guardrail on the Reading side with the fire hydrant in front of it. I wanted to thank you all very much, especially you, Mayor Serkin, for calling me to let me know that the gate was going to be closed. And I appreciate your prompt attention at taking care of that. As you've already heard, it was a problem for a lot of people. In our neighborhood, our children are grown, but we do have several dogs. But our neighbors next door also have a couple of kids that are autistic. So I think that was probably a very big part of why they got the house where they're at too. As the rest of the neighbors did, we bought our house knowing that this was going to be a dead end for life. The property, as the last gentleman noted, has been vacated by Reading. We went ahead and researched that because it abuts our property. It was vacated back in 1962, and there's a city ordinance noting that. It is owned by an association, a corporation, and currently it is currently in business. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. And thank you all again. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Luke, excuse me, good evening. Wanted to say thank you again, echo similar sentiments to my neighbors. My name is Mike Korach, 9440 Waxwing Drive. As I said, I have similar concerns regarding the barrier. I appreciate it being closed. What I just handed over is this article that was being alluded to from 1962 from the Cincinnati Enquirer, and I just wanted to use my time to read this article. It says, "Dead end means just that to Reading. This story starts and finishes with a dead end, namely the dead end that divides Waxwing Drive at the Reading Blue Ash city line. Developer of land on the Blue Ash side has offered to build the missing link. However, residents on the Reading side don't want anyone driving through Waxwing Drive. They got Reading Council this week to direct Wilbert Dietrich, Service Director, to barricade and close the north end of Waxwing, quote, to prevent a possible dangerous condition from developing if said street is constructed northward. Council also passed a resolution vacating the last 5 feet of the street to make sure Waxwing Drive remains dead end." Cincinnati Enquirer, August 10th, 1962. Thank you.
Dwight Dom, East Galbraith Road, which is not in Blue Ash. However, I used to live in the house that Mr. Tucker lives in. And I am currently the best historian on this subject who is still alive since my dad started the Waxwing Beautification Association, which is now operating and actually has control of those 2 parcels that were previously mentioned. The intent in 1962 was to prevent problems that have already been mentioned. There was actually even no intent for sharing of services between the 2 cities, although I consider that a positive development. I remember growing up on that street, and there were a few times when that was open that these people don't remember because they weren't there. And every time it was a problem. And just want to reiterate, sharing services, I think, is a really good idea, but open traffic is a really bad idea. And I know I'm going to catch hell for that at the next council meeting in Reading, as I am the president of council there. But because I am the local historian for this subject, I decided it'd be a good idea to throw in with my neighbors, or former neighbors, some of them used to live next to Mr. Kennedy. And thank you for having me in. Last time I was here, it was Student Government Day for Sycamore High School. And my favorite president was in office at the time.
Mr.
Thank you.
Dom-
Have a good night.
Mr. Dom, I have one question for you. Do you have any information on when Reading put in the barricade between them and Dillonvale?
I wish I had that answer. I'd like to get that answer. And if I can get that answer, I'll provide it to you.
Thanks. Anybody else?
My name is Peter Nord. I live on Ken Ridge Lake. And I want to talk about the service department of Blue Ash and my experiences with the service department. And this is the first opportunity I've had since we had a bunch of snow. And the service department came down our street with their snowplow. I think it must have been very dark because I don't remember hearing them or seeing them. Obviously, I was unconscious, asleep. And as they drove by my house with the snowplow, they scuffed up a little bit of my front yard. And later on in the day, when my neighbor Ed, who's in the landscaping business, was cleaning off my driveway, he says, "Oh, we'll fix that in the morning." Well, morning came along, and in the middle of the night, the good fairies had come and fixed the scuffed up yard, planted seeds and put on protective material of a contrasting color. And it reminded me of my neighbor across the street when the snowplow knocked her mailbox over. It wasn't more than a couple hours later that the city of Blue Ash was installing another mailbox. And my neighbor Ed had one of those metal waterworks plates in front of his house a year or so ago, and the snowplow couldn't see it because it was covered with snow. And he said he was out at 4 a.m. looking around with some of his employees. And he says, that snowplow hit that plate and it decapitated my mailbox. And he says, they were back within a few hours and gave me a new mailbox. And I think we should congratulate Gordon Perry in the way that he has provided a work environment that allows the employees to do that sort of stuff on their own. I imagine they didn't go to Gordon and say, hey, we need some grass seed or we need a new mailbox. They just did it. And that's the kind of thing over the years we've come to expect from Blue Ash. And I think he deserves a medal.
I agree. Thank you,
deserves
Mr.
so
Nord.
many.
Anybody else?
Hello, I'm Garrett Cambry. I live at
Talking
90.
a little
Oh,
louder. Yeah.
hello, I'm Garrett Cambry. I live at 9289 Fidelis Drive over in Kenview Hills. I've met a few of you before, but I'm a cyclist and I don't know if anybody's seen me riding around, but I do. And at the corner of 10410 Kenwood Road, the Sunoco there across from the Shell, there was a new service pole that was put in. It's metal. And as the sidewalk continues north on Kenwood Road, it's a mixed use sidewalk. So there's the old service pole. Immediately next to it, there is the new metal service pole. And then on the other side, there is a fire hydrant. So it makes it rather inconvenient for anybody not walking to squirm their way around it. Now I'm on 2 wheels. I don't know if there's anybody in the community over there who's on a wheelchair or, tries to get around over there, but it's a bit inconvenient. So I just want to put it on your guys' radar, and thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Gordon told me this week that that old pole was removed. So I don't know, Gary, when you were through there last time, but that's been on their radar. They were waiting for the utility company to take the last of their lines down. So it's been taken care of. As if by magic overnight. It's happened. It's
Mr.
happened
Nord
while
was
you were
talking about over there. Yeah. Fairy king. Anybody else?
Good evening. My name is David DeRubis. I live at 9418 Waxwing Drive. I just wanted to appreciate all my neighbors that took the time. They put together some well thought out messages for this group. And Blue Ash is a wonderful place to live. And we appreciate all of your efforts. I too work in public service. I know that decisions have to be made that aren't going to make everybody happy. That said, I support the barrier being closed and only used for emergency purposes. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone? And we're off.
Evening, folks. How we doing?
Good.
I just want to quick say thank you for everything.
Can you
you've
start with
done.
your name and address?
Oh, James
please?
Moore, 9429 Waxwing.
Thank you.
Thank you for closing the gate. I appreciate all the good people over here. One thing I did know is I think a lot of people are cutting through because of that school on Siebenthaler. And I look at the school and it says right on the website, in partnership with Hillsdale College, Cincinnati Classic Academy provides tuition-free classical liberal arts education to 452 students from 52 different zip codes. So my whole thing is, do we want to be the main street for 52 different zip codes? And if someone from Northern Kentucky comes flying down their street and someone gets hurt, the first thing we're going to hear is, why is someone from Northern Kentucky driving down Waxwing Drive? Other than that, thank you very much. Something to think about. Appreciate it. Good stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carolyn Garton, 9403 Waxwing Drives. I'm Scott's wife. Just wanted to add, yes, I agree with the gate being closed, obviously, but also there's a no outlet sign at the top of the hill. Is that going to be changed?
I talked to Gordon about
Okay,
that. We did talk about that.
That's great. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Elizabeth Popham and I live at 9404 Waxwing Drive, right on the other side of the gate. Within 24 hours of the gate being open, our mailbox is one that was plowed over. And that's on us to replace because the driver did not stop. So I just wanted to thank all my neighbors for being here and support the gate being closed. And thank you all for responding to phone calls and managing all of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one, I'm going to close hearing from citizens. We're going to move over to committee reports. Finance and Administration Committee, Lisa Wonka, Chairperson.
Jamie, please read resolution number 2023-31 by title only.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a professional services agreement with MSA Design for architectural design services associated with various facility improvement projects.
Move to adopt resolution number 2023-31.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have one question. Is there an end date on this or is this forever moving forward?
David?
Well, the end date would be when those projects are done. So, I mean, there's 3 or 4 projects, so it's not forever. But yeah, I think it was the 3 identified projects. So when they're done is when that would be done. Yeah.
I have questions. I just want to know that we have a paper here by the hours, who is going to charge and how much they're going to charge. We have a 4 project. Can we just get the individual project and the bid and then we go, which one is favorable to us and which is not favorable to us? Am I explaining right? It's sort of,
I'm sorry, I must have misheard, or I'm not sure I understand the question.
my question is this, that each project, they are charging by hours. Instead of that, each project, they can quote, just like we getting the quotation from others and see how much they're going to charge. So which one is more favorable to us?
Well, so I think you're saying instead of charging by the hour, it'll just be a quote. So with professional contracts, there aren't quotes like a construction project. Professional services are on an hourly basis and you don't entirely know how much work is going to be involved. So a quote may be too high or too low. Attorney services, accountant service, design service, engineer service, those are all professional services and are all done not on a quote basis.
Thank you.
Any others?
Sorry, I just want to go back to the question that I asked. So what's written here does just say design services on multiple city facility improvement projects. I'm not concerned about it. It's not specific in the language. Does it matter?
If you want to change it and feel better, that's fine. If you want to amend it. I mean,
Say currently working on multiple city facility improvement. projects. I kind of read it as whatever 3 or 4 or 5 we're on right now.
yes.
Unless I missed something.
I think in our notes, it said it was the Summit Park Tower Improvement Project, Recreation Center, Whirlpool and Cafe Space Feasibility Study, and the Summit Park Hangar repurposing. But said in the notes. Are you?
Anything new, we would.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I think, I mean, I don't want to speak for the prior council members who spoke. I'm going to guess though, what they might be more interested in is if we had a better range of expense numbers here, because the purpose of the legislation, as it states in the memo, is that we have to approve this because the total amount that is being projected to be spent on these projects is beyond with which the city manager can purchase on his own, the number which I think is $50,000 right now. So then it might be helpful to know then, like, what is the total expense that we would be projecting to be spent on these projects if this legislation is passed?
Brian, do you have an estimate of that as of now?
I don't, because a couple of the projects are actually still in the works. We still have decisions to make specifically with the one at Summit Park. There's 2 at Summit Park, but we still have to work with council in terms of that project moving forward. So MSA's involvement might be a little, depending on whether or not it moves forward, or it could be full design.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, I guess just to demystify it, it's not to be evasive, but yeah, you can hire an architect, for instance, with the Whirlpool and say, hey, we've got some ideas, we want to do this, and they can spend 10 hours on it. And then, okay, that's good enough. We don't want to pursue it any further and we're done. Or we say, no, we really like that idea. Let's take it to council. It's a $500,000 idea just to throw it out there. Now, listen, you have to do $500,000 worth of design work. So that's why it can be variable. It's controlled a bit by how much work you're going to do. For instance, the tower is mostly done, right? It's now just oversight work, but the Whirlpool and what was the other issue? I'm sorry.
Summit Park redevelopment, Whirlpool Cafe, possible parks facility and the tower itself.
Yeah. So what we're happy to do is give you a progress report as we've done in the past on other ones, but the nature of them, you haven't approved the other projects yet, so we don't know how much they're gonna be. They're preliminary work. You have approved the tower, so that one's substantially mostly done.
I think what I hear you saying in the life cycle of a project idea, we get lots of, hey, should we do this with this property, or hey, can we do this with this building, or and this is the initial kind of expertise needed to know whether these things make sense and put a ballpark number on them so that you can make decisions to bring it to council or kill the idea. Is that what I heard?
I'm comfortable with how it is. Thanks.
Any other comments? And Jamie, please call a roll.
Councilwoman Schneider,
Yes.
Councilman Zerwanka,
Yes.
Councilman Capell,
Yes.
Councilwoman Cole. Yes. Councilman Gath,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Javari,
Yes.
Mayor Cirkin.
Yes.
7 yeses.
All I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. We're going to work to the Public Works Committee. Jill Cole, chairperson.
Thank you, Mayor. Jamie, would you please read resolution number 2023-32 by title only?
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract for the 2023 Blue Ash Service Garage Roof Project for the unit prices as shown on the attached bid summary.
Move to adopt resolution number 2023-32.
Second.
This is a project that was included in the 2023 budget, and it involves installing new roofing membrane over the existing roof at the Blue Ash Service Garage and replacing gutters and other related components. Anybody have any questions?
Very exciting.
It is exciting if your roof is leaking.
And it was, because I saw during COBA that they had buckets all over the place.
Are there any other questions or comments? Jamie, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Javari,
Yes.
Councilman Gath,
Yes.
Councilman Capell,
Yes.
Councilwoman Cole,
Yes.
Councilwoman Schneider,
Yes.
Councilman Zerwanka.
Yes.
Mayor Cirkin.
Yes.
7 yeses.
Thank you, Jamie. Now would you please read resolution number 2023-33 by title only?
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract for design build services for the Summit Park Observation Tower enhancements.
Move to adopt resolution number 2023-33.
Second.
I think we've talked about this fairly at length. I don't know, does anybody have any remaining questions or comments?
I will before we vote, though. If you wanted to continue introing it, go ahead.
No, I can just say again, this is in the program is, or the work is installing a new self-supporting frame at the observation deck level and within the existing perimeter of the glass guard. And also on the open areas of the north, south, and west stairwell facades, that will be enclosed with a steel web netting. And this is to improve safety.
Well, first I'll start with the question. If the netting alone on this was done, what would be the approximate cost of that?
Well, the project wasn't actually bid in that fashion, but I guess the answer to your question, the majority of the work is on the tower observation level. The netting portion would be much smaller portion of that, so maybe 200,000 of the overall cost.
Okay.
As a guesstimate.
Okay, appreciate that. And the reason I asked that is just because I still have some concerns about the overall project. To start with, Summit Tower itself has been, let's face it, a white elephant ever since it has been built. I'm told it was 7 million plus to build it. And since then, it has been one problem after the next. I'm not even sure the thing has been open more than it's been closed. Now we have a proposal here where we're turning, the thing was built as an observation tower, but now this proposal is turning the observation, part of this observation tower into almost a jail-like structure with, from what I've seen, is definitely going to impact the views of it. And I'm also just not sure what is actually being accomplished here, because I'm very skeptical that this actually saves any lives. If someone has made a horrid decision to do something, putting all this stuff up on one part of Southwest Ohio that has a big fall isn't going to alter the trajectory of what that person's going to do. Now, if we were in the middle of Kansas 4,000 years ago, and there was one tower in the middle of Kansas 4,000 years ago, then yeah, that would be quite a change. But we're here in an urban county in Southwest Ohio. This legislation would have us spending, let's say, 20% or so of the equivalent of 20% or so of our police budget, of our fire budget. But is it saving the lives or improving the lives that a 20% expenditure of our police and fire budget does? This looks just too much to me, almost like certain elements of airport security, where it's done to look good, but it's not making your flight any safer. So those are my thoughts on it. The netting part of it, I'm more for than the rest of it, but I have some definite concerns about the other portion of it.
Does anyone else have any comments or questions? Jamie, will you please call the roll?
Councilman Capell,
No.
Vice Mayor Javari,
Yes.
Councilman Zerwanka,
Yes.
Councilwoman Cole,
Yes.
Councilwoman Schneider,
Yes.
Councilman Gath,
Yes.
Mayor Cirkin.
Yes.
6 yeses, 1 no.
Thank you, Jamie. Now, would you please, Jamie, read ordinance number 2023-04 by title only?
An ordinance repealing current chapter 1317 floodplain management of part 13 of the codified ordinances of the city of Blue Ash, Ohio, and amending, revising, and reenacting for codification purposes new chapter 1317 floodplain management sections 1317.01 through 1317.99 of the codified ordinances of the city of Blue Ash, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
That was a mouthful. Thank you. I move to suspend the rules of council requiring a second reading since this is being considered on an emergency basis.
Second.
Jamie, will you please call the roll?
Councilwoman Cole,
Yes.
Councilman Gap,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Javari,
Yes.
Councilwoman Schneider,
Yes.
Councilman Zerwanka,
Yes.
Councilman Capell,
Yes.
Mayor Serkin.
Yes.
7 yeses.
Thank you, Jamie. Move to adopt ordinance number 2023-04. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, this is, as I think the title of it very well explained what this is, and this is just to put our ordinance is in line with what the federal requirements are so that our citizens and residents and businesses can take advantage of the reduced flood insurance premiums by our participating in that program. It doesn't affect very many properties in Blue Ash, of course, but any questions or comments? Jamie, will you please call the roll?
Councilman Zerwanka,
Yes.
Councilwoman Cole,
Yes.
Councilman Gap,
Yes.
Councilwoman Schneider,
Yes.
Councilman Capell,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Javari,
Yes.
Mayor Serkin.
Yes.
7 yeses.
Thank you, Jamie. Mayor, that's all I have.
Thank you very much. We're gonna move to the Public Safety Committee. Jeff Capel, Chairperson.
Just one item today. Jamie, can you please read ordinance number 2023-05 by title only?
Amending and enacting certain sections of Part 3 Traffic Code, Part 5 General Offenses Code, and Chapter 1519 of the Fire Prevention Code, incorporating changes in state law and other related provisions of the Blue Ash Code of Ordinances, and declaring an emergency.
Okay, then Brian, do we first move to suspend the rules? Okay. I'll move that we suspend the rules that require a second reading of this ordinance.
Second?
Are all in favor? Or
And this is
or
a-
it read the roll call?
Roll call. Councilwoman Cole,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Javari,
Yes.
Councilman Gap,
Yes.
Councilman Capell,
Yes.
Councilwoman Schneider,
Yes.
Councilman Zerwanka,
Yes.
Mayor Serkin.
Yes.
7 yeses.
Okay, then I will move that we pass ordinance number 2023-05.
Second?
Okay, so with, kind of very similar to the last one we did, the title, it's pretty self-explanatory that we're amending certain sections of the code. And I just wanted to ask Brian just one question that I always ask on these type of things, that to clarify that we're not making any new policies here. We're more just changing our codes to comply with state codes and so forth. And one reason I always like to ask that and get it clarified at the meeting is because if you read through the legislation, you see words like guns and drugs and marijuana. We are not doing anything to gun laws, drug laws, marijuana laws, or anything. We're just changing words in the code to comply with the state. It's very administerial. Are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, if you can please call the roll.
Councilman Zerwanka,
Yes.
Councilwoman Cole,
Yes.
Councilwoman Schneider,
Yes.
Councilman Capell,
Yes.
Councilman Gap,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Javari,
Yes.
Mayor Serkin.
Yes.
7 yeses.
Okay, we're gonna move to miscellaneous business. Before I go to David, there were some questions that I think I can answer. Was Blue Ash Council involved in making a decision to open or close the gate? No. We don't have to be. That's definitely can be done at the administration level. I guess at some point they could ask our opinion, but no, they don't have to do that. The amount of vehicles that kind of keyed us to maybe the gate should be closed, no. It was more of a look, watch, listen to you, listen to the neighbors, see what they thought. I did watch personally, so. And third question was, and Mr. Dom can probably also, I have never heard one person in this city, and I assume you've never heard one person in your city that has any interest in ever opening that gate permanently, correct? Okay. Well, I can speak for our city. I've never heard one person, in administration or this council, that ever for a moment thought that it's going to change. So there's new councils after us, but I can't foresee that after all these years. I mean, I look at it this way. I bought a house at a dead end street for a reason. And I have one too. So that was part of the decision. So I would hope that everybody would respect that forever. So next, move on to David. What? I got the look.
No. Yeah, I don't want to extend that conversation anymore. We spent an hour on it, but you're right that if there was any underlying concern about the road long-term being, and that wasn't the intent at all. And in fact, just to clarify, Gordon never had that intended to be a detour. It was a request by the neighboring community to have that more accessible for purposes of direct mutual aid, fire and police. And the hope was it wasn't going to be advertised and people weren't using, but as you said before, the road wasn't designed to be a detour. We would never have that. And so, yeah, after a while, I realized it was being used more than the intended purpose of just safety. So I think that should pretty well close that chapter. So other than that, I don't have anything else to add, Your Honor.
Kelly? Rachel? Julie?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Gordon, the ferry guy who brings all the special
I bring all the fun stuff.
stuff.
Huh?
Roofs
No,
and mailboxes.
yeah. Thank you, Peter, for their comments. I appreciate it. And my guys appreciate it too. So I don't really have anything to add. Thank you.
Okay, Chief Knoll. And we're doing the proclamation at 2:00. And I hope we are all making fun of him.
He is a Reading resident.
Oh.
That's right.
Brian Cruz,
Nothing tonight, sir.
Chief Theaters.
Nothing tonight.
Who did I miss? Paul? Rachel, I got that. That's it. Counselor? Bill?
Well, I just wanted to say that I attended a meeting of the Blue Ash Business Association last week, and it was my first time meeting with them, and it was a really, really neat group. They had their meeting over at Fretboard, so it was fun to be at that facility, and just encourage anybody, if you have a business in Blue Ash, to look into that group.
Nothing original on my part, though. I just wanted to add to one thing that got mentioned earlier regarding the whirlpool and cafe space, because those are two of the things that are being studied in one of the pieces of legislation that we passed. I got a question from a constituent since our last meeting about the whirlpool and a couple other things at the rec center. So it's just worth noting that the city is studying what to do with that whirlpool space, full range of options being looked at. Also being looked at is what to do with the cafe space. So I look forward to seeing what the options are there. And I'll just add on the cafe space, I think one of the options definitely worth looking at is just seeing if we wanted to rent out the space to somebody who wanted to run a cafe themselves. So that way the city doesn't have to do much more than collect rent, and the space is operated by somebody who has a clear specialty in doing that. Looks like, it seems like something to me that's ideal for somebody who likes to be in food service or drink service, but doesn't want the hassle of running a full-blown restaurant or bar. So I just thought I would throw that out. That's all I have for this month.
I think tonight, other and hopefully everybody gets out and enjoys the great weather. Thank you.
Brian?
I want to thank our neighbors for their thoughtful discussion tonight regarding Waxwing Drive. And I especially want to call out the mayor for his leadership. There's not too many communities where neighbors have a problem and the mayor sits in a car multiple times, counting cars and understanding what the problem is. I'm disappointed that other neighbors who weren't here tonight likened your actions to opening the gates of a Tolkien movie and allowing the horde to come in. I appreciate Blue Ash and the ability to have recent discussions. In other things, though, I don't think, Mr. Nord, that I can give credit to the Parks and Rec people for taking care or taking out your mailbox or your grass. I will say that I was reminded, and we should all remember that whenever our snowplows go out on the main roads, the Parks and Recs are out cleaning a lot of smaller areas as well, and they get those phone calls. And so we don't want to leave them out of the kudos well-deserved for our city workers who do a great job. Well, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Javari.
I just have one small comment and about the cafe in our area. Lots of people want that, and I think they like to come there, sit down there and have a little sandwich and everything. So a lot of people came and talked to me about that we should continue. That's it. Thank you, Mayor.
The only thing I had was about Lieutenant Schuler, and Chief Knoll went through that. Thank you all for coming. We're going to move into executive session for talk about property acquisition to consider the purchase of property for public purposes or for the sale of property at competitive bidding. If premature disclosure of information would give an unfair competitive or bargaining advantage to a person whose personal private interest is adverse to the general public issue. Do I have a motion to move into executive session?
Second.
Jamie, please call the roll.
Councilman Capell,
Yes.
Councilwoman Cole,
Yes.
Councilwoman Schneider,
Yes.
Councilman Zerwanka,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Javari,
Yes.
Councilman Gath,
Yes.
Mayor Cirkin,